Tales of Iron is an action-adventure game with huge amounts of story, heaps of tricky bosses, and loads of weapons. I absolutely adore this game. It's probably a review spoiler if I tell you right away, this is a contender for my game of the year. The difficulty was perfect, with very little time wasted to get through the game. The narrator is fantastic too. It's Doug Cockle, better known for voicing The Witcher. Yeah, that guy! He's excellent! And I'll admit, sometimes it takes you out of it because I can only hear The Witcher. Do you know what I mean? Sometimes someone is a little too famous to do a voice.
All the prince had ever wanted was to prove worthy of his father's crown. He might be the smallest brother, but if he was prepared...
Anyway, you play Reggie, and he's having a bad day. His father is murdered by the evil frog invaders on the day he was meant to become king. Even worse, his brothers are captured. To save the entire Rat Kingdom, you must fight off the frog menace. This is through the sewers, the crypts, and even deeper. There's a boss around every corner and lots of rooms to explore. Do note that Tales of Iron is very linear. There's always one main task you are working on to complete. There are side quests, but they only exist to service the main task. For example, you must rebuild part of the castle, but you'll need gold you can only get from helping defeat a grub monster in the sewers. You can only take one side quest at a time, and it can be a little tedious when you have to go to the sewers 3 times in a row. The game is kinda small and reuses boss arenas. Seriously, it's an issue. Slowly climbing down a ladder to reach one specific spot to murder one monster. Then climb all the way back to the side quest board, get another quest, and climb all the way back down to the spot just about next to the spot you were just in to murder another monster. If the game had one main weakness, this would be it. I was able to tolerate it, but I'm glad Tales of Iron didn't push it any further. I'm bummed there aren't more areas to explore because the ones that are here are so good. The map is also helpful and shows you all the areas you will be exploring. You cannot get lost. This isn't a Metroidvania like Hollow Knight. Moving on to the combat, there's a lot of combat. The entire game is focused on it, and it should be what you focus on if you're asking yourself, do I want to buy Tales of Iron? The fighting is slow. It's often better to wait for the enemy to do something than attack head on. You must play very reactionary. Enemies have obvious telegraphs for their moves. Some attacks even include user interface elements, with red attacks being unblockable. Yellow attacks can not only be blocked but repelled, and white is a ranged attack. You'll need to dodge, block, and memorize every enemy's pattern of attack. I found the combat to be a challenge, forced to attempt bosses over and over. There are huge punishments for taking damage, and little time to drink your flask to refill health. It's so much fun because you need to react quickly or face the consequences. Sometimes I would escape a battle with only a sliver of health left and was so overjoyed at my success I may or may not have cheered out loud. Understandably, some people will find this type of reactionary combat too slow and the combat hints not to their liking. Not sure I understand their problems. It's not that type of game. The combat was inspired by Dark Souls. It is not Dark Souls. Sure, it has a flask and the combat is dangerous, but beyond that, if you go into Tales of Iron expecting a Souls-like, you might be disappointed. The weapons and armor of Tales of Iron are fun, since there's such a large variety. Half the time, I found a weapon upgrade, and I was a bit sad to remove a piece of gear I liked the look of more. There are 3 different types of weapons: spears, swords, and axes, and those are the same categories for heavy weapons. Then there are 3 different kinds of ranged weapons: bows, crossbows, and guns, and each of those has its own type of ammo reserves to make it a little bit fairer. You'll find most of your equipment on your journey. Some of the best weapons are received after you defeat their boss and take their weapons for yourself. But also, you can get blueprints so you can craft them, which isn't nearly as exciting. The biggest factor in your defense is the different resistant types the chest armor can have. For example, frog resistance. Sometimes it's useful since you'll know what enemies you're up against, but that can switch quickly. The item chests that allow you to swap armor pieces are frequent enough you can switch all the time, but it's not something I enjoyed doing. It is much better to be wearing the correct piece of resistance though. So it's nice there are different kinds of weapons, but honestly, they all attack pretty much the same. I didn't have to alter my strategy when switching types. Also, the difference in power was often too great not to switch weapons. Since the combat is reactionary, there's a moment where the enemy is helpless, and that's when you attack. All weapons will work in that situation. This is where Tales of Iron could have done better. I don't mind, but why even have the weapon categories at all? You also need to manage your total equipment weight. I didn't interact with this system too much. It's easy to keep the weight in the lowest setting without sacrificing too much. You're constantly getting better gear that weighs less. Maybe I went out of my way to get all the gear I could and that helped. I had a lot of options and was able to equip a heavier shield easily. Still, it's fun to fiddle with maximizing everything while keeping your defense and attack up. As I said before, it's just a little sad when I wasn't able to equip the coolest looking piece of gear. One final thing you must know before grabbing Tales of Iron is that it's very fair with its health and save points. This is far from the hardest game you've ever played. A save point is outside of every boss fight, and by outside I mean close enough that it isn't annoying to run back to. Sometimes this means literally outside, and other times a few screens away with a few enemy screens between to ding your health down a little before the main event. The fights are not timed and have enough opportunities to drink from your flask, so even a few mistakes in a fight aren't going to kill you. Overall, Tales of Iron is fantastic. You probably guessed I was going to say that from the intro. It's one of those games where I was fully invested in the lore. Long live the Rat Kingdom! Its combat is challenging without feeling impossible. There were a few bosses that I got hung up on, but the save points are close enough to keep trying. I highly recommend Tales of Iron. And now I can go and enjoy my throne as King of the Rats. I hope you enjoyed it. Thanks for watching. Subscribe for more videos about other indie games.